Right, have a quick look in your kitchen cupboard. Got a jar of that fancy pink Himalayan salt sitting on the shelf. You bought it because it looks great in a glass grinder, and let's be honest, you felt a bit superior swapping that cheap, industrial white stuff for something pure and ancient. But what if I told you that the supposedly health-giving condiment you're grinding over your poached eggs every single morning is actually a geological gamble? What if that premium seasoning is hiding a dark secret that the multi-million-pound wellness industry is absolutely desperate to keep quiet? You think you're upgrading your family's health, but you might actually be seasoning your dinner with heavy metals. Today, we are completely stripping back the marketing fluff. You will find out the precise laboratory data that turned the American wellness market upside down and why it directly affects what we're buying here in Blighty. I will show you the massive regulatory black hole in the UK food system that allows unverified products to land on our supermarket shelves without a single safety check. We will break down the absolute fiction behind the famous 84 trace minerals claim, and near the end, I'm going to reveal the most shocking part of this whole situation. The fact that your supermarket salt supplier changes constantly behind the scenes, while you keep paying a premium for the exact same packaging. By the time this video finishes, you'll know exactly which British staple brands to bin, which ones are genuinely safe, and how to protect your household from corporate corner cutting. Before we name and shame the specific brands you recognize from your weekly shop, we need to understand how salt actually works. At its core, salt is just sodium chloride. It doesn't matter if it's scraped off an industrial flat in Cheshire or chipped out of a cavern in Asia. Chemically, it's doing the same job. The big difference is how it's processed. Standard table salt is highly refined, washed, and stripped of everything else until it's pure white. The food industry treats salt like fuel for a car. They want it uniform and predictable. But when they strip it down, they also add anti-caking agents so it pours smoothly in the damp British weather, and historically, they added iodine. Now think of pink salt like an antique car dug out of a barn. It's got character, which in this case means impurities. That lovely pink hue everyone pays a premium for. It isn't some magical wellness compound. It's iron oxide. Yes, you are literally paying a premium to sprinkle geological rust over your avocado toast. Because pink salt is mined from deep underground and sold as unrefined, it doesn't go through the rigorous chemical washing processes that standard white salt does. This is exactly where the industry's sleight of hand happens. They sell you unrefined as a synonym for pure, but in the world of geology, unrefined simply means whatever was in the ground when the rock formed is still inside the product when it hits your plate. It's like buying a muddy potato and calling it an artisan earth-coated superfood. The problem is, the Earth's crust doesn't just contain iron, calcium, and magnesium. It also contains lead, arsenic, and cadmium. When an ancient seabed dries up over millions of years, it concentrates everything that was floating in that prehistoric water, good and bad. The wellness brands want you to picture pristine, snow-capped peaks, but the reality is heavy, heavy machinery digging out ancient rocks that haven't seen the light of day for 250 million years, complete with whatever toxic elements were trapped in the matrix. Every single fact the industry uses to justify charging you 10 times the price of standard salt is a carefully constructed half-truth designed to exploit our collective anxiety about modern chemicals, forcing us right into the arms of an ancient geological lottery. Let's pull back the curtain on what's actually sitting on British supermarket shelves, because this is where the marketing fairy tale completely falls apart. We'll start with the household names you see every single time you trundle a trolley through the aisles and work our way up to the most trusted brands in the country. First up, let's talk about Foodco Himalayan pink salt, a major brand you'll easily spot stocking the world food aisles in Sainsbury's and online grocery platforms. Fudco pitches itself as a provider of authentic, high-quality traditional ingredients, making consumers feel like they're getting a pure, unadulterated product straight from nature. But here's the cold, hard reality. When independent laboratory testing was commissioned across the pond by the consumer watchdog community Mamavation, they sent 23 pink salt products to an EPA-certified facility. The findings were grim. A staggering 96% of the samples tested positive for measurable, quantifiable lead contamination, and 100% of them contained detectable arsenic. Because Fudco openly sources its pink salt directly from the salt range in Pakistan, the exact same geological formation supplying those contaminated foreign brands, we are dealing with the identical physical material. When you grind this over your dinner, it doesn't feel toxic. It just tastes like regular salt with a bit of a gritty crunch. But you're paying roughly £6 to £8 per kilogram for the privilege of consuming unverified rock. It's an absolute rip-off when you realize you're paying premium prices for a complete lack of transparency. As the renowned food safety analyst Dr. Lawrence Green once noted, relying on trust rather than batch-tested data in the spice trade is an invitation for systemic contamination. Verdict zinger. It's basically an expensive way to add geological guesswork to your soup. Moving up the ladder of familiarity, we hit East End Himalayan pink salt, a staple brand found across major UK retailers like Asda and Morrison's. East End has decades of heritage in the UK, built on an image of bringing authentic ethnic flavours to British kitchens, and millions of families trust them blindly. The main accusation here is a total lack of transparency regarding heavy metals. I thoroughly checked East End's corporate declarations and reached out for their certificates of analysis. The laboratory documents proving a product is free from toxic levels of lead or mercury. The result? Absolutely nothing available to the public. If you look at the physical product, it looks beautiful in its bag, a dusty rose texture that promises mineral wealth. But when you break down the price context, you are paying nearly 10 times the cost of standard British cooking salt for an unverified import. Consumer reviews on supermarket websites frequently praise its natural look, but as one savvy buyer pointed out online, we are paying for pretty packaging without a shred of proof that it's actually clean. Verdict zinger. It's a masterclass in selling cheap industrial rubble as a premium lifestyle choice. If you already feel like checking your own cupboard to see what's hiding behind your tea bags, hit that subscribe button right now because it gets even harsher from here. Let's talk about Bart Himalayan pink salt. Bart Ingredients is a heavyweight in the British culinary scene, commanding premium shelf space in high-end supermarkets like Waitrose and mid-tier giants like Tesco. They've built an artisan image based on sophisticated glass jars, bespoke grinders, and a reputation for sourcing the finest herbs and spices on earth. But when you dig into their supply chain, their website proudly discusses sourcing from the Punjab region of Pakistan. They talk endlessly about the lovely pink hue coming from trace minerals, but there isn't a single third-party laboratory certificate for heavy metals published anywhere on their platform. When you use a Bart grinder, the mechanism feels smooth, the crystals crack perfectly, and it feels like a luxury experience. But let's look at the price context. A tiny 90-gram Bart grinder costs around £3.50. Do the maths that translates to a mind-boggling £38 per kilogram. You are paying a luxury markup for salt that originates from the exact same geological strata that failed EPA testing for lead and arsenic in overseas markets. Professor Alan Woodward, a toxicologist specializing in dietary contaminants, warns that heavy metals like lead accumulate in the body over time, meaning even small daily exposures from everyday condiments are a legitimate concern. Verdict zinger, Bart is charging you artisan jewelry prices for unrefined Pakistani mining exports. Now, we have to address the ultimate giant of the premium health market, Celtic sea salt, distributed widely in the UK through independent health food shops, premium online retailers, and platforms like Ocado. This stuff is the absolute darling of the wellness community, heavily endorsed by internet influencers and naturopathic doctors who claim it's a life-changing superfood. It costs a whopping £15 for a small bag, adorned with buzzwords like vital minerals and ancient harvesting methods. But in February 2025, this entire premium illusion shattered when a massive class action lawsuit was launched against the brand. Independent laboratory testing revealed that the fine ground and light grey varieties contained up to 460 parts per billion of lead, smashing through strict safety thresholds for daily consumption. For the consumer, this salt feels damp, clumpy, and grey, which marketing executives successfully spun as a sign of natural hydration and purity. In reality, consumers were paying astronomical prices for a product failing basic heavy metal testing. One characteristic consumer review sums up the betrayal. "I bought this for my high blood pressure because an influencer told me it was pure, and now I find out I've been eating lead." Verdict zinger. It's a silver-plated scam that proves a high price tag guarantees absolutely nothing but a thinner wallet. And now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. We've spent enough time wading through corporate evasion, toxic lawsuits, and unverified imports from thousands of miles away. It's time to talk about the good stuff, the genuine relief of knowing that you don't have to poison your family just to get a bit of flavor on your dinner. The market is changing, and there are superb, thoroughly vetted options sitting directly on British shelves right now that completely bypass the geological lottery of pink salt. We are moving away from blind trust and stepping into the territory of concrete, verifiable data. Let's start with the most accessible, mainstream champion of purity that you can find in literally every single supermarket in the United Kingdom, from Tesco and Sainsbury's to your local co-op. Maldon Sea Salt. Maldon has been doing this in Essex since 1882, operating a traditional family-focused business that relies on the natural tides of the River Blackwater. They don't dig up ancient buried rock from unverified mines. They harvest salt from coastal water using precise solar evaporation and fractional crystallization. When independent consumer groups and testing initiatives, including recent laboratory audits, ran multi-metal panels on Maldon sea salt using high-precision spectrometry, the results came back completely clean. We are talking about absolute non-detect status across the entire heavy metal board. Zero lead, zero arsenic, zero cadmium, and zero mercury. When you use Maldon, the sensory experience is completely different from the heavy, crunchy grit of pink salt. These are soft, pyramid-shaped white flakes that melt effortlessly on your tongue, delivering a clean, crisp, intensely salty burst without a single trace of bitterness or sandy residue. Price-wise, it's exceptionally reasonable. A standard 240-gram box costs around £2 to £2.50 in most British shops, which breaks down to about £9 to £10 per kilogram. That is a fraction of the cost of those pretentious pink grinders, and you are getting completely verified purity. It is the absolute benchmark for a budget-friendly, everyday salt that completely eliminates the risk of heavy metal accumulation in your body. www.scribd.com Issue 2. If you want to step up to something genuinely premium and uniquely British, look no further than Hallan Mon, also known as Anglesey Sea Salt. You can pick this up in Waitrose, Marks & Spencer, and high-end independent food shops across the country. Hallan Mon operates with a completely transparent, single-source philosophy, drawing its seawater under strict licensing from the clean, clear currents of the Menai Strait in North Wales. They are B Corp certified, which means their entire supply chain, environmental footprint, and food safety standards are legally bound to maximum transparency. They don't hide their laboratory data. Their official production specifications operate under a rigid hazard analysis, critical control point system where every single batch undergoes positive release testing. Their standards require arsenic, cadmium, and lead levels to fall well below the strictest European food safety limits, effectively keeping their operational output pristine. In practice, Himalayan Mon feels like absolute luxury. The crystals are hand-harvested and rinsed until they resemble brilliant gem-like flakes that crunch delicately, releasing a perfectly balanced, sweet mineral flavor. Now, let's be entirely honest about the downside. It is expensive. A 100-gram pouch will set you back about £3.50, which translates to £35 per kilogram. It's a premium price tag, but unlike the foreign brands charging identical amounts for unverified sludge, you know exactly what that markup is paying for. It pays for small-batch British craftsmanship, rigorous safety surveillance, and a legally protected designation of origin that guarantees zero additives, zero anti-caking agents, and zero industrial shortcuts. It is ideal for anyone who wants a spectacular finishing salt with absolute peace of mind. Food Innovation Wales. You sure won. Finally, we have to look at the ultimate healthcare fallback for daily cooking. Standard British iodized table salt. Readily available under traditional brands like Saxa for mere pennies at Asda, Morrison's and Aldi. While it lacks the glamorous aesthetic of flaky sea salt, its production process involves extensive refining and washing that physically strips away environmental impurities, resulting in a highly controlled chemical profile. More importantly, it directly addresses the public health crisis of iodine deficiency. Specialist dietary guidelines confirm that refined table salt, properly supplemented with potassium iodate, provides a reliable, metered source of a trace nutrient that your thyroid absolutely depends on to regulate your metabolism and prevent cognitive fatigue. It costs around £1.20 for a massive 750-gram drum, which is an astonishingly low £1.60 per kilogram. It isn't a finishing salt to show off to your guests, but for boiling pasta or baking bread, it is an incredibly safe, cheap, and functional tool that performs exactly as science intended, completely devoid of corporate wellness hype. You can choose the budget efficiency of iodized cooking salt, the flawless mainstream purity of Maldon Flakes, or the artisanal excellence of Himalayan Mon. The choice is yours, but for the first time, you are making that choice based on hard, verifiable facts rather than pretty pink marketing. Now that you know the truth, let's talk about how you can protect your household without needing a degree in chemistry. If you're standing in the aisle at Tesco or Sainsbury's, trying to figure out which salt won't do you harm, you need a quick, bulletproof mental checklist. Here are 7 concrete rules for choosing salt on your own. First, the label must state a precise single-source geographical location, like the Menai Strait or the Essex coast, rather than a generic regional blanket term like Himalayan or imported. Second, if the packaging relies heavily on wellness buzzwords like unrefined purity or ancient minerals, without providing a web link to a batch-specific certificate of analysis, leave it on the shelf. Third, avoid any lifestyle salt that exhibits a separate pink or grey powdery coating when you rub the crystals together, as this indicates a high level of insoluble dust or artificial colouring. Fourth, prioritize salts packed in glass jars or cardboard boxes over cheap plastic pouches, because microplastics easily shed into coarse salt crystals during shipping and handling. Fifth, always keep a cheap drum of iodized cooking salt in your cupboard for boiling vegetables or pasta to prevent the hidden deficiency gap that artisanal salts create. Sixth, if a premium salt is sold at a suspiciously low price, like a massive bag of pink salt in a discount store for less than £2, it means the retailer bought the lowest bidding unwashed industrial runoff from a massive commercial mine. Seventh, check the ingredient list for hidden anti-caking additives like sodium ferrocyanide. If you want truly natural salt, the only ingredient listed on the back of the packet should be salt. To wrap this all up, the entire multi-million-pound pink salt market is built on a very clever optical illusion. The food industry has successfully convinced us that a pretty color and an ancient origin story equals superior health benefits, when the exact opposite is true. By avoiding refined processing, these brands are simply passing raw, unverified environmental impurities directly onto your dinner plate, while charging you 10 times the price of a standard British staple. It is a brilliant marketing trick that exploits our desire for clean eating, turning a cheap Pakistani mining export into a middle-class status symbol. If you want to stop being a victim of corporate marketing, you need to make one simple shift in your thinking. Stop choosing your food based on how it looks on Instagram, and start choosing it based on verifiable batch transparency. Thank you so much for watching and for sticking with me through this investigation. If this video has opened your eyes to the massive transparency gap on our supermarket shelves, please share it right now with that one friend who is completely obsessed with health trends but has no idea what's actually inside their kitchen cupboard. I want to know your thoughts, so drop a comment below and tell me, which of these brands is sitting in your home right now, and are you going to bin it after today? If you want to see how deep the